expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK during the week ahead. Temperatures on the rise too, but later in the week things will be turning more unsettled. High pressure is in charge at the moment, giving us the quiet conditions. This weather front, though, starting to push down from the north, introducing some cloud to some parts of England and Wales, and that's certainly the case as we go through the evening into the overnight period. A fair bit of cloud pushing its way south-westwards across England and Wales, bringing some patchy rain in places. So the clearest skies generally reserved for the north and northwest of the UK. Plenty of clear spells up across the north and west of Scotland, but as a result of the clear skies here, temperatures at their lowest could get down to -5 in 1 or 2 spots here by Monday morning. Whereas towards the south and east of the UK with a cloud around, temperatures generally holding up just above freezing, so the frost here much more patchy. So we start Monday with plenty of sunshine towards the north and west of Scotland, further south and east across the country, a bit more cloud around, the odd spot of rain in places, and fairly cloudy too for parts of Northern Ireland, and variable cloud as we head south into England and Wales, thickest towards the south and southwest of the UK. Here we can see 1 or 2 showers to start the day on Monday, but as I say, the frost will tend to be quite patchy here. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday, the sunshine towards the northwest will tend to fade. The cloud increases from the south and southeast. Elsewhere though, a fair bit of cloud around, particularly towards the south and west of the UK. 1 or 2 showers down towards the southwest. And the sky is starting to clear across the east and southeast of England as dry air starts to move in from the near continent. Plenty of sunshine here into the afternoon, but temperatures still struggling, no higher than 7 to 10 Celsius. 10 down towards the southeast is 50 in Fahrenheit. Tuesday looks like getting off to a pretty frosty start, a lot of clear weather around, but we will see plenty of sunshine then as we go through the day on Tuesday. Just a small risk of a shower towards the far north and northeast of the UK. And temperatures on the rise as we go through the week. By the middle to end of the week, could see temperatures in the high teens in 1 or 2 spots. Plenty of sunshine, but rain by Friday.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight.
About a month ago, we received a fine via email to say that we have a £3,000 fine.
So that was last night, but tonight I think there's a massive scam going on at the southern border, and I'm not just talking about small boat arrivals either. I can reveal today how hard-working British families are being fined thousands of pounds for migrants sneaking into their vehicles in France. So isn't it about time we started docking the pay of our failing politicians too? Because small boat crossings are up 20% so far this year. So how about Yvette Cooper's next pay slip is docked the same amount? Also tonight.
We have built a physical barrier 5.5 meters tall, and it stopped basically 99% of all the pushes, all the attempts were stopped.
In a GB News exclusive, a stark warning from the former Polish Prime Minister who oversaw the strongest border in Europe. When was the last Islamic terror attack you had in Poland?
Zero. I don't remember any. None.
So who or what is behind the agenda of uncontrolled mass migration into Europe? And can we save Western civilization from the brink of collapse? My interview with Mateusz Morawiecki coming up. Also tonight.
Should you be getting a PIP payment for ADHD, yes or no?
I think it very much depends on the nature of the condition.
Labour's £6 billion benefit cut rampage. Just why the hell are people with ADHD being given 55 grand BMWs courtesy of the taxpayer? And
no one knows the truth. What did he put on his American visa form?
If they know something about the drugs and if he lied, they'll have to take appropriate action.
That was Donald Trump last year on Prince Harry's drug scandal, but tonight a bombshell court decision has ruled the Duke's American visa will be made public within days. So the big question is Harry coming home? Joining me on my panel tonight is publican and activist Adam Brooks, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. And take a look at this.
Came in 2019, and under your government, we had what is now being described as the Boris wave.
So the whole thing is complete. You then have a lot of students coming back to complete their courses.
Boris Johnson held to account on his 1 million people who came here under his watch. More of that a bit later on. A big show coming up, including the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages as well. First, though, let's get your news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening to you. Our headlines. A 7-day period of mourning has been declared in North Macedonia after the deaths of at least 59 people in a fire at a nightclub. A warning, some flashing images are coming up. Prosecutors are investigating whether corruption and bribery were linked to the fire, which appears to have been triggered by the use of special effects pyrotechnics devices during a concert by DNK, a popular hip-hop duo. Well, angry relatives have been waiting outside the hospital in the town of Kochani for the news of the victims. At least 155 people were injured, many of them youngsters. Well, more than a dozen of the most seriously injured have been flown to neighbouring Bulgaria for treatment. Authorities have arrested around 20 people in connection with the fire. The Health Secretary says there's been an overdiagnosis of mental health conditions, leading to people being written off. He's been defending the government's attempt to reduce the benefits bill ahead of a series of welfare reforms to be announced this week. Now, there's speculation that could include freezing personal independence payments or at least tightening the rules regarding eligibility for the disability allowance. Wes Streeting says the government's determined to get more people into work.
1,000 people signing on to personal independence payments every single day. That's not sustainable. And we want to make sure that people who need the most help get the most help, and that other people who are able to work are helped back to work. So the welfare state isn't just a safety net for those who need it, but it's actually a springboard back to work.
The Vatican's issued a message from Pope Francis saying he's fragile and his body is weak. In a written message earlier, Pope Francis, who's been in hospital for a month with pneumonia in both lungs, said he faces a period of trial and thanked well-wishers for their prayers. The St Patrick's Day celebrations took place earlier in London with the annual Mayor's Parade. Well, thousands of people joined the procession. It's made its way from Hyde Park Corner to Whitehall and then into Trafalgar Square. Performers of all ages showcasing much of the best of Irish culture, and we've been speaking to some of those who turned the city green.
We are Elite Irish Dance London. We are an adult Irish dancing school, and we're based in central London, East London and Essex. And there's about 26 of us here today. It's our first time doing the parade, and as you can see, we're very excited.
Greenford, West London. So we got a float in here at the minute with all the children and all that. So we do this every year for the kids and all. So it's just good to keep it up.
I'm the chairperson of the London Wexford Association. As you can see, our banner behind us, an absolute great pleasure to be here to promote our county association. Get Wexford people involved, and anyone that's not Wexford that would like to be from Wexford, we bring them in as well.
And we all know there's no one more Irish than the Americans. This is the scene in Chicago as they dye the river green every year. It's also the site of a massive South Side parade where around 150,000 spectators show up. Great scenes there in the US Windy City. And finally, some great scenes, no doubt, in Newcastle and elsewhere, because the football team have ended their 70-year wait for a domestic trophy with a win over Liverpool at Wembley in the Carabao Cup final. Local boy Dan Byrne celebrated a great week. He was selected for England earlier in the week. Well, he scored the first goal on the stroke of half-time, and then Alexander Isak made it 2-0 to Newcastle in the second half. Liverpool did hit back, but Newcastle held on to win their first trophy since 1969 and their first domestic trophy since 1955. And those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with more in about an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening, thank you for your company, hope you've had a good day. I think there's a massive scam going on at our southern border, and I'm not just talking about the small boat arrivals. Last night on this show, I told you about a hard-working family from Kent, Lisa Russell, Jeff Evans and their young son Arlo, who were fined £3,000 when two Sudanese migrants tried sneaking into the UK on the back of their van's bike rack.
Just as we were pulling away, they said, stop, you have two clandestines under your bike, on your bike rack, under the bike cover.
Our story followed an identical situation with a couple from Essex earlier in the week who were also fined when the same thing happened to them. Adrian and Joanne Fenton arrived home from France when another Sudanese chap jumped out the back of their bike rack and ran off. They sensibly called the police, but were later stunned when the Home Office fines them £1,500. Earlier tonight, it was reported that the Fentons have had their fine cancelled on appeal. They won't have to pay a penny. And, in my opinion, rightly so, because what we have here is a situation where Brits each year are being fined by the Home Office for failing to act as unofficial migration patrol. It's been happening for years. This is a story I did for the Sun newspaper 5 years ago, in 2020. In fact, there were nearly 4,000 incidents during the 2021-2022 financial year where illegal migrants snuck onto unsuspecting British vehicles in a bid to make it to Britain. It's outrageous that hard-working British families are being fined thousands of pounds when the government itself is failing to keep its promises on stopping illegal migration. How many times have we heard this?
He promised that he would stop the boats this year.
I think the way to stop the boats is to smash the criminal gangs.
People crossing in small boats across the channel. We have to stop that.
So are we going to start docking the Prime Minister's pay every time an illegal migrant makes it across England on a dinghy? Small boat arrivals to Britain are up 20% for this time of year. I suggest Yvette Cooper's next pay slip should also be docked 20% in pay. That sounds fair, doesn't it? This, of course, hasn't just started under Labour either. It was Robert Jenrick, the former Tory immigration minister and would-be Tory leader, who toughened up the so-called clandestine entrant civil penalty scheme by whacking up fines in 2023. Mr Jenrick said at the time, the increase is being implemented because drivers and other responsible persons are not taking the required steps to secure their vehicles. What a joke. Forget drivers and their vehicles. It's the British state, consecutive governments of all colours, who aren't taking the required steps to secure our borders. The French even aren't detaining migrants who are caught in the act. Listen to what Lisa and Jeff told me last night when I asked what happens to the lads who clung onto the back of their bike rack and what would happen if they refused to pay the fine.
What happened to the two lads, the clandestines?
So they just get taken outside the port and let go to try this another day.
So they're not even detained, they're not arrested, they're just let back into...
No.
They get processed and then probably let back out the other side of France.
Yeah, they do just get let outside the port.
And what happens if you don't pay, eventually?
It says on the paperwork that our vehicle would be seized.
I'll say again, I think it's a massive scam to be fining British people thousands of pounds. It's a slap in the face to taxpayers who are forking out £8 million a day on migrant hotels because our political leaders appear to be actively taking the choice to let illegal migration continue. It's time ordinary British holidaymakers were made exempt from fines under this scheme and the government got real about stopping illegal migration completely. Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Businessman and activist Adam Brooks, the political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Welcome along. Chloe, what do you make of this?
I think it's bonkers that they are fining people who are just normal, hard-working British citizens. You had those people there were rightly pointing out that the people who are kicked off of the bike rack, they just get to go back into the community to try this again. And I spoke to migrants in Calais and we spoke to people who had been trying every single day for about a year to get on a lorry and they keep getting caught, but then they just try it again the next day. If the first time they were caught, they were arrested, then we wouldn't have anywhere near as big of a problem.
Yeah, but isn't it about time we scrapped this scheme for normal tourists and holidaymakers? Why should they be fined thousands of pounds when they're just trying to keep their head above water as it is?
Honest answer, no. In these two particular cases, I think the border agency got it wrong and they shouldn't have been fined. But let's remember, these fines were brought in 2012 because some lorry drivers coming through the Channel Tunnel, coming onto boats, were colluding with illegal migrants to bring them into the country.
Lorry drivers I agree with. I'm talking about tourists.
Yeah, but you can't selectively choose who you're going to operate the fines against.
Why not?
The reality is that about 10 million quid per year is raised, 1,200 cases, and that acts as a deterrent.
What a racket.
Well, no, it's not a racket.
It is a racket. I agree with you with corporations, haulage companies who are going back and forth. They know what happens. They know these migrants sneak onto vehicles. Fine. That's no problem. Tourists who go to France for a long weekend or to get some booze from a Calais supermarket are being stung for thousands of pounds.
And that's where the judgment of the border agency is totally flawed. I mean, the first case you referred to, where they've actually been refunded, as soon as they discovered the migrant was in their vehicle, they phoned the police. How in those circumstances the border agency have said those are sufficient grounds to fine you is beyond me. But the reality is you need a deterrence, and the fines act as a deterrence for lorry drivers colluding. I also think what does concern me is the fact you've highlighted in the report that they weren't detained, they just walked away, having illegally come into the country.
Try again, have another crack, lads. Try again tomorrow. Adam, your thoughts?
Look, I've come from a different angle here, Ben, because I know of people in the Essex area that have been caught, have been arrested for bringing migrants back in camper vans knowingly. So this does have to stop. It does happen. There is a lot of money in going and getting migrants and bringing them back. So there has to be some balance here. I feel sorry for this couple. But it is your responsibility to check your vehicle. Each migrant that comes over potentially costs us, the taxpayer, hundreds of thousands, maybe £500,000 in their lifetime. They could be a rapist, a paedophile or a terrorist, could put us in danger. So we have to have a deterrent.
All right, interesting debate. Let us know what you think. GBNews.com/your your say, a Home Office spokesperson has told GB News tonight, we are fully committed to stopping people illegally entering the country and cracking down on people smugglers, which is why the clandestine entrance civil penalty scheme is there to ensure drivers take every reasonable step to deter irregular migration. We understand that recipients of penalties may disagree with the circumstances of the fine. The option to appeal and trigger a review is made clear in supporting documents. OK, we move on swiftly. We want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway. Your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Just don't go to Calais. Here's all the details you need to win.
Spring has sprung with a Great British giveaway, and we're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, coming up next, as the Environment Secretary Steve Reed warns of water rationing by the 2030s, should we be saving water by sharing baths? I'd argue it depends who you're sharing a bath with. Anyway, we'll be debating that next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Big question tonight. Should the UK be preparing for a water crisis? Environment Secretary Steve Reed has issued a stark warning. He says without urgent action to boost the country's water supply, Britons might soon be sharing baths and relying on bottled water. Reed says the lack of investment could lead to water rationing as early as the 2030s. He's currently calling for red tape to be slashed to make way for 9 new reservoirs to avoid this looming crisis. So, would you share a bath to save the planet? I'm joined now by Just Stop Oil activist Dr Bing Jones and political commentator Jess Gill. Good evening to you both. Thank you for your company. Dr Bing, what's your take on this?
Well, hi there, and hi there to your listeners on this Sunday night. Yeah, look, this is... I'd like to talk about a jolly story about sharing baths, but this is the old thing, isn't it? There are two stories here. The first story is that everything's OK as long as we make a profit. These water companies have been making massive, massive profits. But the second story is the truth, which is my story, which is backed up by the science, which is that we have to save the planet. And the planet is incredibly hot, and the only way to save it, the single thing we have to do, is to stop burning oil, coal and gas. But here, in terms of the water companies, we've just got to look at this. The water companies have been paying £5.7 billion a year in dividends to their stock people, and they have built not one reservoir in 37 years. Yeah. So worshipping profit has ruined our environment, and it's ruined the lives of ordinary people who depend on water. Yep. We've got to decide.
I agree with you.
Are we looking at the truth or the profit?
Yeah, they've been polluting our waterways, our sea, you know, and making untold profit going on to offshore investors. Jess, what's your take on this?
I'm sorry, but I'm fed up of the British public repeatedly, again and again, being punished for the sake of this crazy environmentalist agenda by eco-fanatics like the person I'm debating against. I think it's honestly such a luxury belief. These boomers who think that they have this this monopoly on climate policy, on climate radicalism, and they say they speak for young people as well. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Does Dr Bing speak for you, Jess?
Absolutely not, and I don't think he speaks for the most of young people. I think if you look at Just Stop Oil protests, Extinction Rebellion protests, it's actually mostly old people, quite frankly. They have to put the young people at the front of the line. And I hate this demonisation of these companies who are fulfilling a demand. I'm not saying they're perfect, not at all, but after all, they are fulfilling a necessary demand of water, of energy, and I don't think they should be demonised. If we want to demonise someone, we should look at China or India, who emits way more emissions than the UK does.
That's a fair point, Dr Bing, is it not?
Those are a whole series of completely unfair points. The fanatics are the people who are making profits at the expense of your children, Ben. You've got small children, I've got small grandchildren. I'm a retired doctor. I spent my life watching people dying unnecessarily because they didn't realise how bad their situation was until it was too late. The whole world is in that situation. We're just ignoring the science, which is irrefutable. Every single scientist who's not paid by the fossil fuel industry or their friends says exactly the same thing. We've got to reduce emissions by 10% a year straight away.
Sorry to interject. There's the old saying that 99% of climate scientists also agree they don't want to be defunded. So who is studying this research? And also, can I just another question for you, Dr. Bing, if you don't mind? We've heard warning after warning for decade after decade. Some decades ago, Dr. David Viner, you might be familiar with him, he was saying children in the UK won't know what snow is by the year 2000. There have been so many on the front of Time magazine. We were meant to be having a Siberian climate in London by now. There's been so many warnings. So the question is, when we have wolf being cried so often, how do you expect anything to be different now? Why should people believe you or believe the scientists?
Ben, if somebody comes and asks for my advice and I see something on an X-ray and I think that is pretty much certain death, then they can go and listen to anybody they like down the pub who says, oh, you're probably all right. But the fact is that if you don't listen to the science is absolutely clear.
So this time it's right. So they made mistakes previously, but this time it's right. Is that correct?
The people who are paid to support the fossil fuel industry will tell lies. And the big lie, which is being fed to the government, fed through the media, fed through stations such as this, which are funded by the fossil fuel industry. The lie is that everything's all right. Everything is not all right. There is no water for us. Barcelona has been rationing water now for several years. Southern Spain, businesses are going bankrupt. In California, those wildfires in a few days burnt $200 billion. That's the cost of the NHS. We're in trouble.
I'm going to give Jess the last word.
Children are in trouble. We've got to act.
OK, Doctor. Jess, last word to you. We're running out of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you want to look at the harm that's being caused, look at the families who have to choose between heating or eating because of policies which these climate change advocates are trying to recommend. OK, great. Dr. Bingham, thank you.
Completely wrong.
Yep.
The cost of inaction is much greater than the cost of action.
OK, got it. Thank you, Dr. Bing. Thank you, Jess, Gil. Appreciate your company. Right, a very interesting segment coming up next. Take a look at this.
1,000 people signing on to personal independence payments every single day. That's not sustainable.
That was on Camilla Tominey's show this morning. Apparently, people with ADHD are being given taxpayer-funded cars under the Motability scheme. The government is now hinting at a U-turn on their plans to cut up to £6 billion from the welfare bill. We're going to get stuck into that next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. After the recent warmth across the Eastern Med, it is cooling down here, but still plenty of fine weather for parts of Turkey, Cyprus and the Greek islands. A little bit more unsettled for the rest of Greece and Italy, but especially so for Iberia, some very heavy rain coming here during the first part of the week. But after some recent unsettled weather for the Canaries, it is warming up here. Plenty of fine weather to come with highs in Tenerife, 23 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
One woman whose story embodies these qualities is Daphne Barak. She is a cancer survivor, and her journey through breast cancer was transformed by the unyielding support of Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. When the Duchess learned of her own cancer diagnosis, she insisted that Daphne got a mammogram. Reluctantly, Daphne did this. She went and was followed, and what followed was a life-altering diagnosis, an early-stage tumour. But the fight didn't stop there. Even after surgery, Daphne was told her cancer was aggressive, and she faced the gruelling challenge of preventative chemotherapy. Thanks to her perseverance, the support of others, and the relentless push for Sarah, Daphne is now in full recovery. Well, I'm pleased to say that Daphne joins me now. Daphne, thank you very much for joining me on the programme.
Thank you.
So, Daphne, what a story. Hey, I mean, you were so lucky that Sarah Ferguson, your friend, was there to tell you to go and have that check. Was there any sign to you or any symptom to you that would have irked your suspicion to get some form of mammogram done?
As you know, I'm a very, very busy television interviewer, so it's very easy for people like you and I to be in denial, right? And when Sarah was diagnosed with cancer, nobody knew. Only my husband, Bill, and I knew. And her family, of course, she rang me in the middle of the night. She said, "Oh my God, I have bad news." And when it leaked to the press, when she was going through a big mastectomy, she's so brave. I penned a very personal love letter, which was published on my usual outlets in the UK, The Sun and the Daily Mail. And I just joked, and when Sarah called me in the middle of the night and said I have breast cancer, it wasn't really the perfect time to mention that my mother died from breast cancer.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ben Leo tonight, only on GB News. Is the government backing down on plans to freeze disability benefits? Because reports say that ministers are reconsidering after facing significant backlash from traditionally loyal Labour MPs. Proposals suggesting that personal independence payments, or PIP payments, would not rise in line with inflation for a year. However, this policy now appears set to be abandoned to prevent a major rebellion in the House of Commons. Here's what the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, had to say earlier on GB News when he was also grilled on why people with ADHD are getting PIP payments.
Should you be getting a 52 grand BMW from the Motability scheme if you've got ADHD? Why on earth do you need a taxpayer-funded car with ADHD?
I think that's a very good challenge and one of the reasons why we are looking at the whole issue of welfare reform.
I'm joined now by political commentator Dominic Moffat. Dominic, good evening. What's your take on this? I guess there's two strands to this. The fact that Keir Starmer looks like he's under pressure to U-turn on this policy, which, by the way, hasn't officially been announced. And also, I guess, the amount of waste. I mean, Camilla Tominey this morning suggesting some people with ADHD are getting 50 grand BMWs.
Well, good evening, Ben. And yes, you make a very good point. The package has not yet been announced yet. And I think, as Wes Streeting said earlier today on your channel, he hasn't seen it either. It's not been put to Cabinet. So it's very difficult to comment on the full details. What I think is clear is that Labour ministers are listening to the parliamentary party. They are seeing that there is opposition to some of the steps that they're pursuing, but what they're also seeing is there is general consensus that something has to be done, that steps have to be taken to fix what they're calling a Tory mess in the benefit system, and that steps have to be taken to ensure that the long-term health of a welfare state exists for when people need it today and for the long-term future.
Do you agree with the assessment that this is a right-wing policy? I know it's not a policy because, again, it's not been announced, but it is shades or memories of right-wing politics.
No, absolutely not. I think the Labour Party would say this is about ensuring there is a welfare state when it's needed. It's about ensuring there's public support for support that's provided, that people actually genuinely in need can access the help and support that they require. That's why, there's money that's been put into increasing the employment part of care, the allocation in carers allowance. That's why there's money being put into increasing payments. That's why they've scrapped the PIP kind of freeze, as you've said they've discussed, and that's also why the rates for minimum wage and the living wage have gone up, putting more than £1,400 into millions of people's pockets over the course of this year.
Do you know much about the Motability scheme? It's garnered so many headlines in recent weeks. I think Bloomberg some months ago did a massive article saying how that I think up to 3/4 of the UK car market, all new cars sold, go through the Motability scheme. Did you hear this situation this morning with the BMW and the ADHD? Should we be, should people with ADHD be able to claim cars through the PIP scheme?
Well, I certainly wouldn't claim to be an expert on it, and what I wouldn't do is comment on individual cases, but I think what Wes Streeting said there is a perfectly reasonable line, that maybe ADHD is not in itself a qualification for receiving a however many thousands of pounds BMW.
OK. And just finally, what do you think of the claim that Labour are now no longer the party of the vulnerable, of society's neediest? They're more champagne socialists trying to cater to the posh Islington dinner set.
Oh, well, I think that's patently ridiculous. And what you'll see is that actually the 4 million economically inactive disabled people that are currently in receipt of parts of this payment, many of them want to work. And the moves today to introduce that, I can't remember what they're calling it, but the steps to ensure that you can try to go back to work and not lose your entitlements is absolutely a piece of support for some of the people in society that need help. This is supporting those people.
OK, Dominic, great stuff. Thank you for your company this evening. Let us know what you think, gbnews.com/your say. Up next, my exclusive interview with former Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. He talks about the collapse, or the pending collapse, I guess, of Western civilization, the uncontrolled mass migration crisis, the erasure of European culture, and his thoughts behind it. Don't go anywhere. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK during the week ahead. Temperatures on the rise too, but later in the week things will be turning more unsettled. High pressure is in charge at the moment, giving us the quiet conditions. This weather front, though, starting to push down from the north, introducing some cloud to some parts of England and Wales, and that's certainly the case as we go through the evening into the overnight period. A fair bit of cloud pushing its way south-westwards across England and Wales, bringing some patchy rain in places. So the clearest skies generally reserved for the north and northwest of the UK. Plenty of clear spells up across the north and west of Scotland. But as a result of the clear skies here, temperatures at their lowest could get down to -5 Celsius in one or two spots here by Monday morning. When it's towards the south and east of the UK with a cloud around, temperatures generally holding up just above freezing, so the frost here much more patchy. So we start Monday with plenty of sunshine towards the north and west of Scotland, further south and east across the country, a bit more cloud around, the odd spot of rain in places, and fairly cloudy too for parts of Northern Ireland, and variable cloud as we head south into England and Wales, thickest towards the south and southwest of the UK. Here we can see one or two showers to start the day on Monday, but as I say, the frost will tend to be quite patchy here. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday, the sunshine towards the northwest will tend to fade, as cloud increases from the south and southeast. Elsewhere though, a fair bit of cloud around, particularly towards the south and west of the UK, one or two showers down towards the southwest. And the sky is starting to clear across the east and southeast of England. The dry air starts to move in from the near continent. Plenty of sunshine here into the afternoon, but temperatures still struggling, no higher than 7 to 10 Celsius. 10 down towards the southeast is 50 in Fahrenheit. Tuesday looks like getting off to a pretty frosty start, a lot of clear weather around, but we will see plenty of sunshine then as we go through the day on Tuesday. Just a small risk of a shower towards the far north and northeast of the UK. And temperatures on the rise as we go through the week. By the middle to end of the week, could see temperatures in the high teens in one or two spots. Plenty of sunshine, but rain by Friday.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, coming up next is a GB News exclusive. I sat down with the former Polish Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, who was the Prime Minister of Poland between 2017 and 2023. Very highly regarded across Europe. In actual fact, he is considered as having the strongest border policy across Europe at the time. Of course, Poland is now run by the Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who's a bit of a globalist, a bit more of a liberal. So there's concerns there that the Polish border is going to weaken in the coming years. However, Mr. Morawiecki came to London yesterday. Take a listen. Mateusz Morawiecki, thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to London. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the last time you were here was, well, diplomatically anyway,
yes,
when you were Prime Minister in 2023?
2023.
There's a video of you with Boris Johnson in Downing Street. What was it like visiting Boris when you were Prime Minister?
Thanks for having me first. The visit was very important because we were quite frequently on the line with Boris Johnson with regard to Ukraine and the Russian barbarian attack on Ukraine and the sanction packages and so on. Of course, this was already after Brexit, so the sanction packages agreed on the European Council level did not automatically apply to the United Kingdom, so we had to agree the details very often. And I'm very pleased with the stance of the United Kingdom government back then.
Yeah, that is something that Boris Johnson has earned plaudits from, being one of the first to arm Ukraine and so on. We'll talk about Ukraine and NATO and Donald Trump shortly. First of all, though, Boris Johnson, what was he like, do you think, as a leader? Because he has a reputation around the world of being a good leader, a very popular leader, not least in Ukraine. But here, he does get some criticism for presiding over an immigration policy that allowed more than 1 million people since 2021 to come to the UK. So
we disagreed on this, let me be very blunt, because we were of the view that all sovereign states have to be first in control of their borders. And this is why when President Putin and President Lukashenko tried to push people through the Belarusian-Polish border, instrumentalizing people from the Middle East, we said it cannot be the case, and we have built a physical barrier 5.5 meters tall, and it stopped basically 99% of all the pushes, all the attempts were stopped. And I know that the policy of Boris Johnson and the government was a little bit different, so we differed on this in this aspect, and also the impact of illegal migration on the real economy, on social security system, on security on streets, and how safe people are. Like I can only say to all the Brits and all the people in the United Kingdom, come to Poland. Poland is one of the safest countries in the world.
It is, and it's funny you say that, because I know people who are now actively moving to Poland because of your border policy. You don't advocate, well, at least Donald Tusk maybe differing from your premiership.
He's much softer than I was.
Yeah.
Like I can give you an example. Olaf Scholz and his police, they are making some pushbacks from Germany to Poland. I wouldn't allow for such behavior, that the German police is driving into Poland and is actually pushing the migrants into Poland, presumably because they came to Germany from the Polish territory, which is not always the case, or we don't know the details. So this is the policy of my government was very tough on this issue. Having said that, there were many migrant workers allowing to Poland, but on a completely different conditions.
Where were they from, those migrant workers?
From Ukraine, from Belarus, from those cultural circles which were very close to Poland, but also some from Philippines.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because in the UK, we have essentially, since Brexit, we have said goodbye to the hard-working Poles, your countrymen, the Eastern Europeans, the Latvians.
Well, 500,000 Poles came back to Poland when I was Prime Minister, so that's one of my major achievements, I have to tell you. Yeah.
Well, look, so they went home for a reason, and what's happened in the UK is, under the likes of Boris Johnson, I'll mention him again because he was a proponent for a lot of this, we have people from all around the world, many third world countries, illegal migration as well, lots of people coming from predominantly Islamic countries as well. What's the difference then between Eastern European migrants and migrants from the rest of the world? Why don't they, in your mind, assimilate or convene like Eastern Europeans?
Well, first of all, if there are migrants in such big numbers as they are here into the UK or in other countries, my first decision would be to assimilate them, to have as a strong and effective policy of assimilation as possible, and not allowing ghettos like which I saw around the German German cities or around the French cities, ghettos of illegal migrants where police has no access to. This is beyond my imagination because it shouldn't be like in a sovereign state. And my second point is that within the European Union, I was not agreeing on the migration pact. I actually rejected the migration pact in 2018, and then till the end of my government, we were not agreeing with the migration pact. And right now, a week after the new government started in December 2023, the migration pact was adopted by the European Commission and the European Union, which means that there will be more and more of those illegal migrants coming probably also into Poland.
Can I call you Matthias? Is that okay?
Yes.
Matthias, let's try and get to the source of this. I don't know if you... Yeah. What is this illegal migration surge about? Because you said at CPAC, you said the European Union was operating an open doors policy for illegal migration. Some people blame it on climate change or wars, of course, play a part. But do you think there is a wider or a bigger agenda behind this flood of illegal migration into Europe?
Yes, I think that some, in particular, liberal and left-wing governments, they take it as a kind of instrument of changing nations, changing societies, and this is happening in France, in particular in Germany. I know Germany quite well.
But why do they want to change the identity of nations?
Because they associate it with the right-wing parties in particular, and with the statehood and the focus on nation, on culture, on tradition. These are the bastions of the right-wing parties. So they probably want to destroy those bastions. That's one of the reasons.
And who do you think is behind it?
I mean, they have this ideology. I mean, the left-wing parties, they are established parties, lots of media, NGOs, and they are quite powerful. I see this in Poland. Even if most of the society, most of our public opinion is against it, the liberal and leftist media have still again and again this attempt to push the migration pact and to push illegal migration into Poland.
Did you know there were Brits immigrating to Poland?
I have many friends from the United Kingdom emigrating to Poland. I know many of them.
Why do you think that is?
Actually, well, I was visiting London many times when I was president of the bank and having here roadshows, and many of them working in the city of London and so on, they see, first of all, new opportunities, the land of plenty, fantastic economic development, the fastest in the European Union apart from Malta and Cyprus, which are the tax havens, basically. Yeah. That's the first reason, probably. And the second reason is because of the security on the streets. You can walk, young ladies, 10 p.m., no problem. One of the lowest crime rates in the world.
When was the last Islamic terror attack you had in Poland?
Zero. I don't remember any. None.
Final question, because I know you are very pushed for time. J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, has said that Europe is risking civilizational suicide. And Germany in particular is killing itself by letting in millions of illegal migrants from countries that are totally culturally incompatible. Is he right?
Yes, he's right. I would agree with this.
Is it too late to turn the tide?
I believe it's never too late. Maybe the European Union is doing too little too late right now, but I still believe that there is going to be this wake-up call, and most of nations of the European Union will wake up from the geopolitical slumber on the one hand, and from this civilization maze, which they cannot really, detect the way out of this jungle. Yeah. I believe that, more and more people understand it, and Vox Populi, Vox Dei. People will be pushing the governments to change their approach. That's my hope.
Do you agree that the United States and Donald Trump is leading the way on this? They're 2 or 3 years ahead?
Clearly. When I see the policy of President Trump the last 2 months, and and first 2 months, they are serious about defending our Western civilization.
So you're hopeful?
I'm hopeful.
You're hopeful for the future of civilization, Western
Absolutely,
civilization?
and I'm even optimist, even if with all the flaws and failures and mistakes. I do believe that people in the Western civilization will eventually look around and see that we have to defend our civilization, Christian civilization. That's the most important task ahead of us.
Mateusz Morawiecki, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, you can see more of that interview. It's much longer. It's around 25 minutes, of course. We can't show the whole thing on air tonight. If you go on the GB News YouTube channel, and you can get much more of that. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Businessman and activist Adam Brooks, political commentator Chloe Dobbs, and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Bill Rammell, do you agree that Western civilization is under threat from mass migration?
No, but we need to manage it. And where I wholly disagree with the former Polish Prime Minister is this idea that liberal left governments want mass migration. You can criticise the government that we're not necessarily making the right decisions, the right progress we should. I think it's too early to reach that judgment. But this government, like other left-of-centre governments across Europe, across the world, want to significantly reduce illegal and mass migration. The way you do it is challenging, but I don't believe civilisation is under threat. I also found his description of Trump as the saviour, as Western civilization. Here we've got a man who's repudiated Ukraine, turned down backs on one of our strongest allies who've been taken on by the Russians, and he's effectively colluding with our arch enemy, the Russians.
I always say Morawiecki is a massive Ukraine ally. He's very, very pro-Ukraine.
Yeah, then he shouldn't be supporting. He shouldn't be supporting Trump as the saviour of Western civilization, who's blown apart the post-war consensus about how you face up to the Soviet or.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Donald Trump would argue there's method to the madness. You know, he's trying to bring Putin to the table.
I think there's madness in the madness.
Adam Brooks, what's your take? Mass migration, is it a threat to Western civilization? Have people like the former Prime Minister, they got the right idea when it comes to borders?
Yeah,
strongest border in Europe.
What an impressive man. And if only this country had a leader like that over the last 15 years, we wouldn't have half the problems that we do now, Ben. The West is desperately... it's on track, you know, to be unrecognisable in the next 10 or 15 years. We have hotels filled with migrants in this country that cannot speak English, that have no chance of ever getting a job, of fitting in with society. They're always going to be a drain. Our sex crime rates are going through the roof. Violent crime is going through the roof. And our social housing is nearly all being filled now by foreign-born.
That's not true.
It is, Bill.
It's not true.
It is, Bill. In Paddington now, it's something like 70%. 70%. No, it isn't. That is a fact, Bill.
Right, you bring the evidence.
I will show you in the break.
It's not true.
All right, Adam, we'll get it in the break and we'll see. Chloe, what's your take?
Well, first of all, on that, it's not the majority of social housing in the whole country filled by migrants, but it is heading in that direction in London.
In many areas in London, yeah.
Social housing has a foreign national at the head of the household. But just in response to what the former Prime Minister said there, I think one thing that really terrifies me is the rise in terror attacks. Look at what's happening in Germany. I would not be surprised if that is what comes to Britain soon. You've got, like, car rammings, it seems like almost every single week. Look at Poland. They've got, like, no terror attacks whatsoever. And that is no coincidence. We are seeing time and time again that asylum seekers, often who were meant to have been deported already, are committing horrific attacks, and people are losing their lives and getting injured who should not be in that position whatsoever.
Yeah, Morawiecki was absolutely horrified, actually, with the state of affairs. Not particularly in the UK, but certainly across Europe, Germany especially. You mentioned all these recent terror attacks. You can't go to a Christmas market anymore in Germany without a high chance, I'd argue, of getting mowed down by
and he also makes the point about women's safety as well. You know, even forget terror attacks, just women's safety, you know, massive rises in sexual assaults and rapes. We're only just starting to get the figures here in England, but we've seen figures in Germany, Italy that are just horrifying. I think the idea of living in Poland, where it's safe to walk down the street as a female, sounds fantastic.
I have no problem with looking at what works elsewhere in the world. For example, this government is looking at and working with the Italian government, a very right-wing government, because it's had success in reducing illegal migration. But again, where I take issue with the former Polish Prime Minister is when he characterises it as a split between the Christian world and the non-Christian world. With the greatest respect, Poland is not Britain, and Britain is not the kind of Christian country.
Britain is a Christian country, Adam, no? You got 20 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not religious, but the foundations of this country are built on the Christian church.
Culturally Christian.
Yeah.
I don't go to church,
Okay,
but I'd say I live in a culturally Christian.
We'll continue.
And I agree with that, but you know, to characterise it as a split between the Christian world and the non-Christian world, I think it's
We'll
dangerous.
continue this after the break during the papers. I would argue I've got more in common with Poles as opposed to people from the Middle East. I mean, it's just a fact. Coming up next, take a look at this.
Came in 2019, and under your government, we had what is now being described as the Boris wave.
So the whole thing is complete. You then have a lot of students coming back to complete their courses.
Really great episode of Trigonometry tonight. Boris Johnson held to account on the 1.2 million people who came to Britain under his watch, plus all the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. Let's get your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK during the week ahead. Temperatures on the rise too, but later in the week things will be turning more unsettled. High pressure is in charge at the moment, giving us the quiet conditions. This weather front, though, starting to push down from the north, introducing some cloud to some parts of England and Wales, and that's certainly the case as we go through the evening into the overnight period. A fair bit of cloud pushing its way southwestwards across England and Wales, bringing some patchy rain in places. So the clearest skies generally reserved for the north and northwest of the UK. Plenty of clear spells up across the north and west of Scotland, but as a result of the clear skies here, temperatures at their lowest. Could get down to -5 in 1 or 2 spots here by Monday morning. When it's towards the south and east of the UK with a cloud around, temperatures generally holding up just above freezing, so the frost here much more patchy. So we start Monday with plenty of sunshine towards the north and west of Scotland, further south and east across the country, a bit more cloud around, the odd spot of rain in places, and fairly cloudy too for parts of Northern Ireland, and variable cloud as we head south into England and Wales, thickest towards the south and southwest of the UK. Here we can see 1 or 2 showers to start the day on Monday, but as I say, the frost will tend to be quite patchy here. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday, the sunshine towards the northwest will tend to fade. The cloud increases from the south and southeast. Elsewhere, though, a fair bit of cloud around, particularly towards the south and west of the UK. 1 or 2 showers down towards the southwest. And the sky starting to clear across the east and southeast of England. The dry air starts to move in from the near continent. Plenty of sunshine here into the afternoon. But temperatures still struggling, no higher than 7 to 10 Celsius. 10 down towards the southeast is 50 in Fahrenheit. Tuesday looks like getting off to a pretty frosty start, a lot of clear weather around, but we will see plenty of sunshine then as we go through the day on Tuesday. Just a small risk of a shower towards the far north and northeast of the UK. And temperatures on the rise as we go through the week. By the middle to end of the week, could see temperatures in the high teens in 1 or 2 spots. Plenty of sunshine, but rain by Friday.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner of the Great British Giveaway, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight on the front of the Daily Telegraph. Get this, 4 in 10 Gen Z workers are considering quitting their jobs to live on benefits. Does that surprise you? Also tonight, massive story stateside as Prince Harry's visa files have been ordered to be made public by a judge. Will they reveal the big long question that the Duke of Sussex lied on his US immigration paperwork? And could we see the Duke of Sussex heading back to the UK imminently? Elsewhere, I reveal just how many Brits in the UK support mass deportation. I guess the number won't surprise you. And
came in 2019, and under your government, we had what is now being described as the Boris wave.
So the whole thing is complete. You then have a lot of students coming back to complete their courses.
Boris Johnson held to account on the 1.2 million people dubbed the Boris wave who came to Britain under his watch as Prime Minister. Joining me this evening to go through all of the top stories is businessman and activist Adam Brooks, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Also a breaking story in The Sun tomorrow. Apparently only 8 criminal Albanians out of a possible 200 under a massive government scheme costing around £10 million or even more have only been deported. We'll get more of that in just a sec. But first, your news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Ben. Very good evening to you. Our top stories. A 7-day period of mourning has been declared in North Macedonia after the deaths of at least 59 people in a fire at a nightclub. A warning some flashing images are coming up. Prosecutors are investigating whether corruption and bribery were linked to the fire, which appears to have been triggered by the use of special effects pyrotechnic devices during a concert by the DNK, a popular hip-hop duo. Now, angry relatives, they have been waiting outside hospital in the town of Kochani today for news of the victims. At least 155 people were also injured, many of them young people. Well, more than a dozen of the most seriously injured have been flown to neighbouring Bulgaria for treatment, and authorities have arrested about 20 people in connection with the fire. The Health Secretary says there's been an overdiagnosis of mental health conditions leading to people being written off as he defended the government's welfare reforms. Wes Streetings acknowledged there will be significant job losses following the decision to abolish NHS England to bring the health service back under the control of ministers. He says the surprise move is the beginning, not the end, of his plans to slim down the UK's bloated public services.
we're actually cutting waiting lists twice as fast as in other areas. So I will be applying this principle elsewhere in the NHS to make sure that where we are seeing people doing something that's innovative and impactful, they're not just isolated pilots. The NHS has got more pilots than the RAF, but they're being adopted and rolled out across the country, and that's part of the wider reform agenda we've got to take the NHS from the worst crisis in its history, get it back on its feet and make sure it's fit for the future.
Donald Trump's expected to speak to Vladimir Putin in the coming days as he attempts to broker peace in Ukraine. Well, that's according to the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who told CNN his discussions with the Russian president in Moscow last week were positive and solution-based. He also said Putin accepts the philosophy of the peace plan. While Donald Trump trying to win Vladimir Putin's support for a 30-day ceasefire proposal that Ukraine accepted last week, both countries, though, traded heavy attacks over the weekend. The Vatican has issued a message from Pope Francis saying he is fragile and his body's weak. In a written message earlier, Pope Francis, who's been in hospital for a month with pneumonia in both lungs, said he faces a period of trial, and he thanked well-wishers for their prayers. And the party's begun for Newcastle fans after ending their 70-year wait for a domestic trophy with victory over Liverpool in the League Cup final at Wembley. The question is, when will the party end? And by the looks of this, not for a while. This is central London, Covent Garden, where the Toon Army are out in force. Dan Byrne and Alexander Isak scoring their goals either side of half-time. Newcastle winning the game 2-1. Their first trophy since the Inter-Cities Fairs Cup in 1969, and their first domestic trophy since 1955. They'd previously lost 9 successive finals at Wembley Stadium. Well, congratulations to them. More from me in about an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. The first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages have just dropped. Let's start with The Independent. It leads with "No ceasefire will work." This is a special dispatch from the front line. Medics on Ukraine front line scorn Donald Trump's peace talks. Well, it seems like they want to keep fighting. Interesting. The Metro. Wes Streeting, doctors are overdiagnosing mental issues. He says that Labour will help people back into work. And also, at the top of the Metro there, the 59 killed in the 3 a.m. club blaze. That was a breaking story earlier this morning from abroad. And the Daily Telegraph, Bridget Phillipson has been accused of bowing to education unions. One down the bottom here, 4 in 10 Gen Z workers consider quitting to live on benefits. Apparently, they're giving up on work because they think that they can sit and claim a life of benefits and survive just as well. We'll get stuck into that very shortly. But breaking tonight, big story in The Sun tomorrow. Get this, only 8 Albanian prisoners have been sent home to serve their sentences in an £8 million scheme meant to return 200 killers, rapists and drug barons. So 200 were meant to go back. We've sent home 8. The hardened criminals were among some of those due to be returned from the 1,200-strong Albanian population in British prisons. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. British businessman. I guess you are a British businessman, aren't you? Businessman and activist Adam Brooks, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. This story is just breaking, guys, in The Sun. It's coming out tomorrow. It seems, though, Adam, 200 were earmarked to be sent back. Hardened criminals, rapists, killers and so on, drug dealers. We've sent 8 back.
And what is the reason for that? Why are we keeping people, dangerous people in this country, at huge taxpayers' cost when we've got no prison space ourselves? You know, we need to start deporting foreign criminals en masse so we can start putting some of our own criminals in prison where they should be.
Shall I give you some detail?
Go on.
So this 2-year scheme, £8 million, it launched in 2023 under the Conservative government. It had been set to double the number of foreign offenders deported to 200. Hold-ups, though, are being caused by lengthy admin delays, which are frustrating Whitehall officials, apparently. The repatriation plan sees the UK pay Albania an expected £4 million a year to take back its most violent prisoners. Chloe, but we're not. Nothing's happening. Crazy. Delays, Whitehall, admin.
Well,
Computer says no.
Just doing a bit of basic maths, if it's cost us £8 million and only 8 are being sent back, then that's costing us £1 million per person, which is just more taxpayer coffers down the drain. you say it's about admin taking too long. I mean, come on, Whitehall, get your act together. It seems like they all just sit on their bums. But also, I would not be surprised if ECHR rules are being used here to try to delay things. Right to a family life constantly being used to stop people who are dangerous people who shouldn't be in our societies taking up prison space from being kicked out. I mean, how many more stories are we going to see? I know the chicken nuggets one was hilarious, but we keep seeing
it's almost like, daily.
Yeah,
we're getting
it's almost
these
every
now.
day. So it's not like it's just a fluke that this happens occasionally. You can give any old excuse and they'll let you stay in this country.
Bill, just reading this Sun story. It's breaking now. I'm learning on the job, as always. It says government sources stress the UK only paid Albania part of the £8 million each time a criminal was returned. So I guess, what, £1 million a criminal at the moment, right?
Brilliant.
The cash will be used to pay for refurbishing Albanian prisons. Oh, yeah, of course it is. Extra security, workshops in Albania, rehabilitation equipment and the training of warders.
I don't know the detail of the scheme. Clearly, the government needs to get a grip on it and ensure that it works properly. Overall, and I've made this point to you before, Ben, deportations, both of failed asylum seekers and criminals, are up by 30% since the general election, and we've got record numbers of flights leaving the country. Do we need to do more? Yes, we do, but we're beginning to make progress, but we need more.
Bill, let's be honest now. Most of those were either paid or they yes, they were, or they were overstayers, people that have come here and worked and overstayed. Let's not kid ourselves that, you know, these are the migrants that are coming over on the boats.
30%. The best figures for about 7 years.
But the public is worried about the unknown men with unverifiable pass coming across on migrant boats, coming here. They're not being deported. Right? Labour are not deporting those.
Deported. And I tell you what, you know, we always talk about the bad news. The best bit of news I've heard this week is the fact that the government is considering amending the application of Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, not leaving the ECHR, but tackling the way that we in this country apply the right to a family life.
Is that under the migration bill, the Labour's new bill?
Yes. Yeah. There's going to be amendments coming forward to do that and look at best practice elsewhere within Europe.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Do it more tightly.
I'll believe it when I see it.
That is a good step in the right direction. I do think that governments, both on the left and the right, around the world, or around Europe especially, are starting to realise that the migration problem is becoming so huge that they need to do something. Now, are they tough enough to really get a proper handle on it? I don't know. As Adam says, I'll believe it when I see it. But they are being forced, and they see their polling and they see reform going up as well.
Look.
They're starting to realise they should do something. So that is a step in the right
They're starting
direction.
to realise this government came to power with a commitment to cut net migration. We're
How's
already
their
making some
smashing the
progress.
gangs commitment going?
Yeah, it's going to take
Got
time.
huge numbers
We never said in 8 months it was going to be stopped.
Some nice sunny weather now.
But let's be honest here. If suddenly this Labour government put 200 Sudanese migrants that shouldn't be here on a plane, sent them home, that would send the message to the world that we're no longer, you know, the place of gold and honey, right? We need to do what Trump has done. I think it's 95% he's dropped the numbers from on illegal immigration since he's got in. That's what we need to do. We need to see planes flying through the air and taking these chances back to where they came from.
I will say, on the illegals Labour have deported so far, I've told you last week and probably the week before, they are low-hanging fruit. They're Vietnamese now-bar workers who won't have much trouble going back, and so on and so on. But granted, they've done it, which begs the question, Adam, why didn't the Tories do it? If it's so easy, and it is easy, they're very easy returns to Vietnam and all these places where they can't cry about persecution or war. Why didn't the previous government?
I'm embarrassed that I supported the Tories. I mean, the last sort of 6-7 years have been a disaster with immigration. False promises, lies, lack of action. It was a disaster, and that includes Boris there, you know. And I was a big fan of Boris.
That buffoon and Chancellor Boris Johnson.
But things have to change because, as we spoke in the last segment, our society is changing. Our crime rates are up because of migrants. We need to change. I've got 3 kids. I'm missing one out there. I've got 3 children. I fear for their future, and things have got to change because society is breaking down, and it's not helping by tens of thousands of migrants coming over each year, and then we're finding out that they're bringing another 5 of their relatives over a couple of years later. These numbers are going to be out of control in the next 5 years. We could probably see
numbers are already coming down.
We could see millions of illegal migrants
Still,
here.
let's not forget that Labour are the ones who, first day in office, cancelled the Rwanda.
Because it wasn't
deterrence.
working. It was completely...
It hadn't been given a chance.
I thought that Rwanda wasn't going to work, but we were actually seeing... I mean, I was in Calais myself before the general election, talking to migrants there, and they were all saying they're waiting for the general election because they're worried about Rwanda and they're terrified about being shipped to Rwanda.
If you have only
Although
a
the
1 in
numbers who are going to
1,000
be...
chance of being deported to Rwanda and you've gone thousands of miles across the world, that is not a deterrent.
No, that's what I thought, right? If you know the proper stats, right? But actually, talking to the migrants who aren't really that educated about exactly what the numbers are and exactly how British politics works, they actually were scared and they were waiting. And that's why you saw a big flood of them come across after Keir Starmer came into power.
OK, let's move on. The Metro, Wes Streeting, doctors are overdiagnosing mental health issues. 500,000 mental health claimants since the pandemic, I believe. And also a very interesting conversation this morning between Mr Streeting and Camilla Tominey. On her show, she was suggesting that people with ADHD, Bill, you know about this car motability scheme, maybe you can shed some light on it. She was suggesting people with ADHD were being given, well, not given, were getting through their PIP scheme, through payments through PIP, cars worth £50,000. What's the truth about all this?
Well, firstly, the current welfare system is unsustainable. 38% increase in welfare claims since 2019. Politically and financially, it's unsustainable, which is why the government is right to tackle it. In terms of Motability, I do know a bit about it because they used to be based in my constituency and I visited them at least twice a year. And what happens is... And I don't understand the £55,000 figure because the maximum payout you can get under PIP is £184 a week. Yeah. You roll up 3 years' worth of payments to get a car. They use collective purchasing to get the best deal on purchasing cars. And if you are disabled and you judge that's the best thing to help me to get back into the workplace, you can do it. But that only gets you £28,000 over 3 years.
So where did this 50 grand BMW come from?
If I had £1 for every time I've heard a completely untrue claim about the benefit system, I'd be a lot wealthier than I am.
Is any of this scheme taxpayer funded? Because there was a Bloomberg story a few months back saying that I think 75% of all new cars now sold in the UK are going towards this Motability scheme. Is it subsidised by the taxpayer? How does it work?
My understanding is it's not subsidised by the taxpayer, but like any collective purchasing scheme, they've got bulk purchasing which can drive down the costs of the purchase to people who are on PIP. But, you know, go and look on the government website. The maximum payout under PIP is £184 a week.
OK, sticking on benefits, on the Daily Telegraph, at the bottom, interesting story, 4 in 10 Gen Z workers, Chloe, I'll ask you because you're Gen Z, I believe, considering quitting their jobs to live on benefits. Would you consider packing this all in and going on the dole?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't. I've got to keep busy. But there are plenty of people who look at what work pays these days and compare it to what they could get if they jump the hoops to get benefits, and they see there's actually not that much difference. They'll be earning a bit less on benefits, sure, but they haven't got to go to work 40 hours a week, have they? So, you know, it used to be the case that there was much more of a disparity between what you earn and what you get on benefits. You know, people who have a degree and lots of qualifications and are lucky enough to be able to get a high-paying job, then there is a big gap between what you can earn on benefits and what you earn in work. But for people who, you know, their only option is, say, a minimum wage hospitality job, there's not really that much difference.
Adam, really, I haven't heard this before, but there's a very, very, I think it's amazing, staggering line in this Daily Telegraph story tomorrow. It says the UK remains the only G7 country with fewer people in work now than before the COVID lockdown in 20...
Look, I've just wrote down COVID lockdowns because that showed many of these younger generations, you know, that life was a lot easier if you didn't have to work. Now, the system is so flawed where you can survive on benefits instead of actually going to work. It becomes a lifestyle choice, as 4 in 10 are considering quitting here. It's very dangerous territory that this country is in now. We are facing bankruptcy. We are so lazy. We've got such lazy generations. I blame Instagram. I blame the COVID lockdowns. People don't want to work anymore. Yeah. You know, and I'm putting my kid through college. He's leaving school, and he wants to do an electrician course. I think, you know, in a few years' time, he's going to be earning a lot of money because there's not going to be a lot of tradesmen left in this country.
Adam, I remember when I left school, the lads and the boys and the girls who left to do trades, plumbing, become sparkies, carpenters, whatever you want, they were looked down on. They were somehow, society and their peers looked down on them and thought, oh, well, you're not going to higher education, you're just a bit thick. Do you know who my peers are now with the most money? Yeah. With the most comfortable lives, going on nice holidays and looking after their families? Tradies, electricians, plumbers, carpenters.
And let's remember, it used to...
well, I don't know about that.
It used to be a bit of shame if you had to claim benefits. I think that's been lost now. You know?
Do you know, I think you and I, Adam, agree about this. I think collectively, as a country, we have lost some of our work ethic. And it really does concern me when you see poll findings like that. You know, one of the really shocking findings is 1 in 8 18 to 24-year-olds is not in education, employment or training. And one of the welcome things the government is saying is if you don't take the offer of education, employment or training, you lose your benefits. And that's what should happen.
100%. We agree again, Bill.
We agree. We're going to have a G&T's next at the local boozer.
We're both Spurs supporters, that's what it is.
Oh, you're both Spurs supporters?
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me, actually.
Struggling Spurs supporters.
You lost today, didn't you? Oh, sorry, I should
Yes,
talk
we
about
did.
scores before Match of the Day's on. But what was I going to say? Rob, you've said, I forgot your comment, you said you're a Chelsea fan, you've just got back from the Arsenal game, and now you have to contend with me, the Gooner. I'm sorry, Rob. Right, more to come, including this Boris Johnson interview that's dropped tonight on Trigonometry. He talks about his change from climate sceptic to net zero fanatic. His answer is pretty interesting, to say the least. And also, he was confronted about this Boris wave of migration. 1.2 million people to Britain under his watch. First, though, it's time to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway. Your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to win.
Spring has sprung with a Great British giveaway, and we're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck to you. And more front pages coming up. Plus, this big story from America. Prince Harry's visa files are set to hit the spotlight. They're going to be published. That's after a judge's ruling that they must be made public by Tuesday next week. Did he lie on his visa application? In his memoir, Spare, I'm sure you've all read it and enjoyed it, he talks about taking magic mushrooms, cocaine, cannabis, so on and so on. Apparently, if you enter the US on a visa and you declare you've taken drugs, the chances are you won't get in. So did he declare that drug use on his visa? Did he not? If he lied, is Donald Trump going to send him right back to the UK? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Ban criminals from pubs and sport games instead of sending them to prison, Minister suggests. So this is Sarah Sackman said the bans, as well as mandatory work for offenders, very much in the mix. So this is all part of what's going on with the Leveson review, and there's and he's reviewing the criminal courts, and David Gauke's review of sentencing, and they're looking at sort of ways that they can
Not
keep
send
people out, not send people to prison. It's very much of a theme at the moment.
Not dealing with the causal factors.
None of the dealing of the causal factors, none of looking back into society or the community and saying what's causing this in the first place, how can we prevent any of this? And you know what, it assumes that all criminals like sport, socialising and going to the pub. If they don't, then they're getting away scot-free. If you are a criminal and you're thinking, well, I don't really enjoy the pub, I'm not that sociable.
If you're antisocial in the first place, then that's why you committed the crime.
And a lot of criminals are. You know, they keep themselves themselves.
I think you should go to your sentencing dressed out in a football kit.
Yeah, just got a full kit on. Oh, I was on the way to the pub.
Please don't stop me playing football. This is more akin to, you know, a mum punishing a naughty child, you know. Right, you're not allowed to go out and play table tennis because you're being bad. You're not going to the party. I mean, why don't we just tell criminals that Father Christmas isn't coming for them this year and see if that stops them? You know,
it doesn't really explain how this is going to work.
No. It actually makes lockdown worse than a criminal sentence.
Well, it was.
You know, what we went through was worse than that because we weren't allowed to exercise or do any of these things. And do you know what? There's no deterrence in this anymore.
Well, that is a really good idea you've just had.
What?
What
was my idea, Josh?
If they don't want to send people to jail, they should go back to, like, the Tier 1...
Just lock them down.
Rules.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, fresh data from Find Out Now, shared with GB News, big exclusive, has revealed staggering support amongst the general public for deporting foreign offenders from Britain, also called, familiarly in recent weeks, mass deportations. Results show 84% of all voters do support the deportation of migrants who commit violent crimes. And among Reform UK voters, this number is 99%. When asked about the deportation of migrants who commit sex offences, the public is again overwhelmingly supportive at 85%, while Reform voters responded with 96% support. The polling was commissioned by Adam Wren, a young campaigner with a large following on X, who joins me now. Adam, good evening. Thank you for joining me. What does this tell us, then, if anything? Of course, we've heard the term mass deportations over recent months because there's been a bit of a split in the Reform UK camp between the likes of Rupert Lowe, who says, yes, we need mass deportations. Nigel Farage, on the flip side, has been a bit more cautious about using that kind of language. I don't want to talk about them too much, but what does this data show us about Britain as a whole?
Yeah, well, the reason that I commissioned this poll in the first place was because I had a bet earlier in the week with James Johnson, a guy that runs JL Partners polling company. And it was that poll, that bet that we had about the recognizability of Rupert Lowe that was the news story for the whole week. You'll remember people were saying that Rupert, I think he got 26% recognition with Reform voters and 14% recognition with the public. And I thought that he did rather well. I only lost that bet by 1%. But people used that poll to try and argue that because Rupert wasn't well known, that therefore his views were fringe. And I kind of thought the way that it was being used was a little bit unfair. So I thought the best way to correct for that would be to actually find out what the public thinks. And I thought that the public would be in support, but even I was surprised at just how overwhelming the support was.
So, first of all, what was the sample size?
It was 1,000, which is, it sounds low to people that don't know polling, but most polls run with samples like this, 1,000 to 2,000. It was a nationally representative sample.
And when asked about the deportation of migrants who commit, let's focus on sex offences, the public was overwhelmingly supportive. 85%, Reform voters were 96%. 85% to me, I mean, that is overwhelmingly supportive. To me, that sounds quite low still. Who wouldn't want to deport foreign sex offenders?
Right, well, the interesting thing about that is I broke it down by party, and we found that even the Greens were overwhelmingly supportive. So for the sex offenders in particular, it was 65%.
So who was the lowest party on that question?
It was the Greens at 65. So
okay, well, still
a good percentage of them didn't.
Yeah.
So there's your answer to that.
Still more than half. And violent crimes, what was the party breakdown on that? Reform were 99%.
Very, very similar. It was Reform were pretty much 99%. Very close to the Conservatives, which were 97. Even Labour was 80%, and even a majority of the Greens with that as well, 53. So a slim majority, but still a majority of Greens.
All right, so you're going to conclude, or we can conclude, I guess, from this poll. There are other polls out there, of course, but you think Britain does support mass deportations akin to Rupert Lowe?
100%, yeah. I think it was a mistake to spend the week saying that because he didn't have good name recognition with the public, that therefore his views are out of step with the public. That's definitely not the case, I don't think.
All right, interesting. Let's see what our viewers say. gbnews.com/your say. Adam Wren from Find Out Now, thank you for joining me this evening. Let's go through some more front pages that have just dropped. We'll start with The Guardian, which I don't have, but I'm sure I can read it on the screen. Thank you, Chloe. Let's have a look. Anger grows over Keir Starmer's £675 a month disability cuts. MPs and campaigners raise fears over major changes to benefit rules. Of course, we've been talking about it for days now. £6 billion Labour are mooted to be targeting from the welfare bill. There's the front page. Ministers are set to ditch plans, though, to freeze PIP payments amid a backlash. The Daily Mirror. We will not become victims of this. Sir Chris Hoy's wife has spoken movingly of the couple's strength as they both battle ill health. Yeah, it's unbelievable what Chris Hoy is going through. It just goes to show that, you know, you can be anybody of any stature, of any fitness, or of any accomplishment or achievement, and cancer can still get you. Our thoughts with Chris and his family. The Daily Express, are we on? Miracle drug makes cystic fibrosis vanish. A wonder drug that makes the disease vanish has been approved in a major boost for thousands of UK sufferers. Nice picture up the top there of Newcastle. Hooray, the lads. They end their 56-year trophy drought in style. The Times. Labour war of words on disability benefits. The row keeps rumbling on, of course. Wes Streeting says medics sign off too many staff. But Andy Burnham is warning that cuts will, quote, trap claimants in poverty. And, yeah, back to the panel now. This benefits situation seems to be rumbling on, Adam, Chloe, Bill. Is this a split in the party? I think it's the biggest rebellion since the winter fuel payment.
Well, let's wait and see what the detail of the announcements are. I think it's coming on Tuesday. I said earlier the current system is politically and financially unsustainable. And I think moving forward we do need to tighten eligibility for personal independent payments. 18 to 24-year-olds, you take a job, you take training, or you get your benefit cut. The one thing that did worry me about the proposals was the notion that for those who are genuinely in need, you cut their level of PIP. And I think that would have been wrong. And by the sound of the briefing within the press this weekend, that element has been dropped. But in terms of the overall reform package, I think it's absolutely the right way forward. And I actually have a view that it's actually easier for Labour governments to reform the benefit system than Tory governments because the public trust us more than they trusted.
So what will happen, Bill, if Keir Starmer just U-turns completely on this, as is being rumoured? He's going to look weak?
No, that's not the suggestion. No? It's the one element which is freezing the PIP allowance in 2026, and I think that would have been wrong and it would have been counterproductive. But the rest of the package, I think, is going to go forward, and I think the vast majority of Labour MPs will back it.
Look, there's so many people gaming the system as well in this country. As you said, how can people with ADHD get benefits or free cars, like the story was earlier? I've got a child with ADHD, dyslexic. You know, I know that child is going to go on and work hard and succeed in life. I do not believe that child should then go on and get disability benefits. I think it's wrong. And that's someone in my family that's got that. I mean, we should really just be supporting those that have got proper disabilities that cannot work, and there needs to be a tightening of that eligibility.
I agree with that. Listen to Wes Streeting this morning, who I happen to believe is one of the best reformers in this government, and he talked about the over-diagnosis of mental health issues, and I think that was what has dragged the system into a lacking in credibility.
Yeah, I think Bill, you're absolutely right that Labour are the ones who can get away with trying to reform this and trying to make cuts. It's very toxic if the Tories try to do this. When the detail of it comes out, maybe that will calm some of the storm. I'm sure there'll be a split in the party, but you've got to remember that the Labour Party, they've got a very big majority, so they can deal with some rebellion on this.
OK, I want to share with you some clips from a new interview tonight of our former Prime Minister Boris Johnson on the YouTube channel Trigonometry. There's a big interview on there. Go and check it out. 2 clips to share from you from Trigonometry. The first is Boris Johnson being held to account on his immigration record. Of course, we've all heard of the Boris wave, 1.2 million people who came to this country under his watch. This is the moment he responded to accusations that he pretty much let the country down.
I'm holding you to account right now. I'm holding you to account right now. So let me do it.
Go on.
We had the Brexit referendum. You came in 2019, and under your government, we had what is now being described as the Boris wave, in which we had as many, if not more, people come into this country in a similar period of time.
That's actually, if you look at if you look at what actually happened. The numbers go down. We have a huge number of people leave the country
because of COVID.
Because of COVID,
yes.
So the whole thing is complete. You then have a lot of students coming back to complete their courses,
right?
Who push up the numbers in that so-called wave.
Yeah.
You have, of course, because we're talking about 2022. We have a large number of Ukrainians coming in. You have Afghans coming in to whom we owed duty. You also have
Hong Kongers.
You also have Hong Kongers.
Chloe, he doesn't seem to think there was much of an issue with the so-called Boris wave. Hong Kongers, students, Ukrainians.
I mean, the numbers are way too high, but he does make the right point that a lot of them were Ukrainians. We know that Boris was a huge supporter of Ukraine and so wanted to do what he could to help. And if the war comes to an end, a lot of those people will go home.
They should all go back.
Students will eventually go home. But there were huge issues with students being able to bring over a load of dependents with them, like older students, PhD students who actually have a family and kids, being able to bring everyone over. I'm sorry, but having net migration at nearly 1 million a year is just not sustainable, and he is responsible for that.
Yeah, Adam?
It's unforgivable, and I gave him my vote. You know, I was a big fan of many issues of his leadership, but I was pulling my hair out at others. They talk so tough on immigration, and yet they let the country down so badly, and that's why I just could not vote Tory again.
Bill, here's a challenge for you. It's going to be easy for you to come in here now and put Boris down again after Chloe and Adam have, of course. What did Boris Johnson do well?
He stood up for Ukraine in a way that was right and justified. However, I know Boris reasonably well. He shadowed me for 2 years when I was Higher Education Minister. And he's entertaining, he's funny, but he's deeply unserious, and he never does his homework. And the mess we've got on migration is a product of that. And I saw that firsthand, his inattention to detail, which is frankly inexcusable, and how he ever was allowed by the Tory party into the highest office in the land is beyond me.
OK, interesting. My chat with the Polish Prime Minister, which you can see at length on YouTube now, he was talking about Boris Johnson and praising him. He really was a bastion across the world for sticking up for Ukraine. So I guess that is one good thing, arguably, that he did for this country, amongst other things, I'm sure, as well. Anyway, up next, Prince Harry's visa files are set to hit the spotlight thanks to a judge's ruling that they must be made public by Tuesday. Judge Carl Nichols has ordered a list of these files, which could reveal if Harry lied on his visa. Let's go to a break. Charlotte Griffiths, editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, is with me next.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. After the recent warmth across the Eastern Med, it is cooling down here, but still plenty of fine weather for parts of Turkey, Cyprus and the Greek islands. A little bit more unsettled for the rest of Greece and Italy, but especially so for Iberia, some very heavy rain coming here during the first part of the week. But after some recent unsettled weather for the Canaries, it is warming up here. Plenty of fine weather to come with highs in Tenerife, 23 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation.
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Aaron, this is a mad idea.
The future is bold. The future is hard, and it requires mad ideas. And we're proud to be bold and thought-provoking.
How are you going to make money out of this?
Well, the Olympics make $4.5 billion in revenue per Olympic cycle. And they're a wildly profitable organization that has never been challenged. So we're very proud to take them on and create something better and more efficient. It's not well known, but 44% of Olympians admit to using banned performance-enhancing substances, according to research funded by the International Olympic Committee and published in a top-tier scientific journal. It's absolutely rife. So 44% of elite athletes admit to using banned substances, only 1% get caught.
Would this not encourage the production of harder drugs, though? You know, steroids that go that bit further?
Absolutely, right? And the goal is to create an environment where research and development are openly celebrated rather than being done in secret. When things are done in the open, we can study those compounds, and the drugs that allow athletes to run faster and jump higher are the same drugs that will allow all of us to be younger and faster and stronger for longer.
If, as you say, 44% of Olympians are actually using this stuff anyway, secretly behind the scenes in a sort of hidden and unregulated way, would it actually look that much different to you or I sitting in the stand watching people run 100 metres? Would they actually do it much faster?
Yeah, because you could have athletes who are in their 30s, maybe even in their 40s, breaking world records. And we're already seeing that with our athletes that we have in training. It's absolutely exceptional. If almost half of Olympians are already using banned substances, they're doing so in secret. They're not using the best available compounds. They're not doing it under clinical supervision. They're doing it to beat the drug testing, not to optimize their results.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, big story breaking stateside. Prince Harry's visa files are set to hit the spotlight thanks to a judge's ruling that they must be made public by Tuesday. And haven't we waited long enough? Judge Carl Nichols has ordered the release of these files, which could finally reveal if the Duke of Sussex misled authorities in America on his immigration paperwork. While we don't know exactly what will be included in this release, it might show whether Harry said no when asked if he was a drug user. Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by the editor-at-large for the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, good evening.
Evening.
Just for some context, very quickly, Harry, in his memoir Spare, was talking about taking magic mushrooms, cocaine and cannabis.
Yeah.
And the situation is, if you go to America, you apply for a visa, you must declare drug use.
Yeah.
So the big question is, did Harry declare his drug use or not?
Yeah, so he was either lying in Spare to get us to read his book and sell a few copies,
Never.
highly embarrassing, or he was lying on his form, also highly embarrassing. And Biden did a good job, or the Biden administration, of stopping these documents from coming out. But finally, they're all going to come out. And I think it's going to be heavily redacted. And it's going to be really disappointing because there's going to be some juicy stuff in there.
So we're going to have a repeat of the Epstein files, are we? Just redacted, nothing?
Yeah, we know that one of the documents isn't coming out at all, out of 4. But if that box that says no isn't redacted, then we will finally find out, after months of talking about it here on GB News, everyone's been talking about it, we'll finally find out what he wrote.
It was the Heritage Foundation, of course, this think tank in Washington who have been pushing for this, their massive campaign.
Yeah.
Does Donald Trump, does he have anything to do with this judge's decision today?
Well, it's interesting because Carl, previously in September, when it was the Biden administration... The judge, said, oh, no, this is private. And then now they appealed and he's suddenly had a change of heart and said, well, actually, no, it probably is a good idea. Maybe we do all need to know You know, and of course Biden has a great emphasis on border control and all that stuff. So it's a whole different context now, only a few months later. So it's going to be very interesting. But what Trump has said is he's not going to deport Harry, so we're not having him back.
He said that?
No, he has said that, yeah, he has.
So he's not coming back?
There's this very funny thing that happened.
We don't want him back.
He met Prince William, Trump, in, I think it was November, a few months ago. And you know, they seemed to have a little tete-a-tete, and everyone was speculating, was William saying, please, for the love of God, don't send him back? Because, you know, quite unexpectedly, Trump said, look, I'm not going to deport him. He's got enough troubles with his difficult wife as it is.
I remember that.
Very headline-grabbing moment.
Yeah, typical Trump. I mean, Charlotte, you are one of the top royal reporters in the country, if not the world. Have you heard anything from the Sussex camp about this?
No, not really, except that one thing I have heard consistently all the way along is that Harry will never be away from his kids. He'll do anything he can. You know, even if that marriage ended, I'm not saying it's going to, he will still always remain wherever the kids are. And Meghan has no intention of moving back to the UK or leaving America. So it seems that whatever happens, he's going to try his best to be there in California.
I guess if President Trump has already said he's not going to deport Harry, it kind of doesn't matter. None of this matters, does it? The only thing we'll learn is that Harry lied one way or another.
Yeah, it's just embarrassing for Harry and Meghan.
There is a third alternative.
Yes.
That he did declare it, and a political decision was made to give him a visa.
Yeah, I mean, he is probably on an A1 visa, which is the superstar celebrity royal visa anyway. So there is a chance that it's, you know, he was just given a special dispensation anyway. But it's just embarrassing, and I think Trump will want to slightly embarrass them because Meghan's been quite vocal about her dislike of Trump in the past.
Yeah, a bit of revenge.
Yeah,
good point. Great point, Charlotte. That's why you paid the big bucks for the royal.
It's very, very cold, by the way, because this has been a hell of a long time coming.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been a massive campaign, and I guess if Donald Trump, as you said, isn't going to deport Prince Harry, I also wonder where he'd stay if he was back in England. Royal Lodge? Who's in there at the moment?
Well, he's got a house in Portugal now, so he might come to Europe rather than in England. Who knows?
Interesting. All right, great stuff. Thank you, Charlotte. Stick with us. We're going to go through more papers after the break. I've got another clip for you after the break as well. Boris Johnson, that interview with Trigonometry tonight. He was asked about his change from climate sceptic to, well, quite frankly, net zero fanatic. I'll share that with you in just a tick. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK during the week ahead. Temperatures on the rise too, but later in the week things will be turning more unsettled. High pressure is in charge at the moment, giving us the quiet conditions. This weather front, though, starting to push down from the north, introducing some cloud to some parts of England and Wales, and that's certainly the case as we go through the evening into the overnight period. A fair bit of cloud pushing its way south-westwards across England and Wales, bringing some patchy rain in places. So the clearest skies generally reserved for the north and northwest of the UK. Plenty of clear spells up across the north and west of Scotland. But as a result of the clear skies here, temperatures at their lowest. Could get down to -5 in one or two spots here by Monday morning. When it's towards the south and east of the UK with a cloud around, temperatures generally holding up just above freezing, so the frost here much more patchy. So we start Monday with plenty of sunshine towards the north and west of Scotland, further south and east across the country, a bit more cloud around, the odd spot of rain in places, and fairly cloudy too for parts of Northern Ireland, and variable cloud as we head south into England and Wales, thickest towards the south and southwest of the UK. Here we can see one or two showers to start the day on Monday, but as I say, the frost will tend to be quite patchy here. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday, the sunshine towards the northwest will tend to fade, with cloud increases from the south and southeast. Elsewhere though, a fair bit of cloud around, particularly towards the south and west of the UK, one or two showers down towards the southwest. And the sky starting to clear across the east and southeast of England. The dry air starts to move in from the near continent. Plenty of sunshine here into the afternoon, but temperatures still struggling, no higher than 7 to 10 Celsius. 10 down towards the southeast is 50 in Fahrenheit. Tuesday looks like getting off to a pretty frosty start, a lot of clear weather around, but we will see plenty of sunshine then as we go through the day on Tuesday. Just a small risk of a shower towards the far north and northeast of the UK. And temperatures on the rise as we go through the week. By the middle to end of the week, can see temperatures in the high teens in one or two spots. Plenty of sunshine, but rain by Friday.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Let's have one more look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, shall we? Starting with The Independent. The headline reads, "No ceasefire will work. Medics on Ukraine front line scorn Donald Trump's peace talks." That's a special dispatch from Ukraine. The Metro, Wes Streeting. Doctors are over-diagnosing mental health issues. Labour say they'll help get people back into work. The Daily Telegraph, Bridget Phillipson under fire for bowing to education unions, allegedly. And down the bottom there, we've discussed it, 4 in 10 Gen Z workers are considering quitting their jobs and living on benefits. What could go wrong? The Guardian, anger grows over Keir Starmer's £675 a month disability cuts. Again, this row over benefits. The Toon Army celebrating there at Wembley after winning their first trophy, the League Cup, in 70 years. The Daily Mirror. Sir Chris Hoy, "We will not become victims of this." Sir Chris Hoy's wife has spoken movingly of the couple's strength as they both battle ill health. Best wishes to them. The Daily Express, "Miracle drug makes cystic fibrosis vanish." Good news for sufferers of the disease, as a new drug has just been approved in a major boost for thousands of sufferers. The Times, Labour war of words on disability benefits. Wes Streeting says medics sign off too many staff. Great picture here of the 2 astronauts who were stranded on the International Space Station. Elon Musk, SpaceX, has now finally rescued them. They're coming home after 9 months in space. The Guardian, anger grows over Starmer's... we've read that. There we go. That's it. All done. Right, let me share this clip with you. Boris Johnson, again, in this interview with Trigonometry tonight. Check the full interview out online. This is the moment he was addressed on his change with regards to the climate.
You've always been a huge fan and supporter of net zero. Why is that, Boris?
I began as a pretty sort of acid, vinegary climate skeptic, and I hated the way people who were doing ordinary things were made to feel bad. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very preachy, and it was basically all a socialist plot to try to stop people living their lives as they want. And what really changed my mind, there wasn't a single Damascene moment. You know, it wasn't looking at a hockey stick graph and thinking, my God, we're all going to fry. It was basically intuitive. It was getting up in a plane the whole time. As I did as Mayor of London, I was doing lots of trade trips, and then later as Foreign Secretary. And humanity encroaching everywhere. And you see the destruction that human beings are wreaking on the planet, the spread of cities. And I sort of think, because you look down and just see the huge numbers of people. And intuitively, I sort of think, well, look, we are clearly having a colossal environmental impact.
Right, let's blitz through this. Adam, your reaction to Boris. Sceptic to net zero fanatic.
Well, net zero, there's big money in net zero, and we know Boris likes money, so I'll leave that there. But a lot of people are waking up now to this climate con. We're felling millions of trees in the Amazon to make roads for a climate COP30 convention. They're not even trying to hide it anymore.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Look, I haven't got issue with moving more towards renewables. They're going to get cheaper over the long run. But what is stupid is when you've got stupid things like getting rid of the Amazon rainforest for a conference, everyone flying in on private jets, and you've got Ed Miliband saying he's going to put cement down our last gas wells. That makes no sense, and that's nutty net zero.
Charlotte, did he fail to live up to expectations, Boris Johnson?
No, I think that's very on brand for Boris. You know, he's quite... he's always been quite eco-conscious. I know that at the very beginning he wasn't, but, you know, these days he lives this very rarefied lifestyle in Oxfordshire. You know, that's his vibe now.
Bill, your thoughts?
I think I'm going to be fair to him. In all his time as Prime Minister, he was committed to tackling net zero. Whether that was his view or his wife bending his ear
or his
all
dad,
the time, or his dad, remains to be seen. Okay. But the thing that strikes me is, what's he done to his hair? It's worse than ever.
Oh, leave him alone. It's a great Barnet. It's a Boris Barnet. We love it. Right, thank you for your company tonight. Thank you, panel. Just before we go, I want wanted to give a quick mention to my late grandmother, who sadly died on Friday, just a couple of days ago. There was a big chunk of my life where I didn't see or speak to one side of my family. I won't go into the details, but I was lucky enough to, around 10 years ago, rekindle those relationships, including with my nan, Sheila. There she is, at our wedding a few years ago. Before she finally left us this week, and she was also a big fan of GB News. She regularly told me how proud she was to watch me on Britain's Newsroom every Friday morning, and I'll definitely fondly remember her telling me how she loved me, as she described, me smiling at her through the telly every Friday morning. So sorry to ambush the show tonight, but I'm just sending all my love to her children, my father, my aunties, my uncles, who have been by her side so loyally in recent weeks, in her last days. Yeah, Godspeed to you, Nan, and big hugs to the family. And there she is, Sheila.
That's lovely.
Well done.
Very nice.
Right, coming up next, it's Headliners presented by Leo Kurz. Leo, what's in store, my friend?
Just wiping a tear from my eye there. We've got a cracking show tonight. We've got Simon Evans and Kerry Marks, and we're going to be talking about Shakespeare, who's now apparently a white supremacist and needs to be decolonised. Honestly, I think the problem is that Britain is colonised by idiots. We've also got the Islam channel that's being investigated by Ofcom over apparent extremism. So who'd have seen that coming? And we've got the Reform candidate who's been rather unfairly smeared as being a sort of Nazi apologist, which is quite unfair considering a lot of his family died in the Holocaust.
Great stuff. Thank you, Leo. Panel, before we go, very quickly, Elon Musk has saved these astronauts from space, stuck on the International Space Station. He claimed on the Joe Rogan podcast that Joe Biden, it was a political football situation. He refused and delayed to rescue them because he didn't want to use Elon Musk's spaceships. What do you make of that, Adam?
I think it's fantastic that Elon Musk has saved these people. Can you imagine? I think they was going up there for a few days. They've ended up there 8 or 9 months. Yeah. That's not good. So fair play to Elon Musk, using his wealth and his knowledge for good. 9
months they were stuck in space, and apparently I was listening to Elon talking about it. Their bones deteriorate, their muscle loss is insane. So they are on the way back to Earth. So well done. That's all from me. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Chloe, Charlotte, Bill. Really appreciate it. Thank you at home once again. I'm back next Friday with Britain's Newsroom. Let's get Headliners in a minute, but first, your weather. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you soon. Good night.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK during the week ahead. Temperatures on the rise too, but later in the week things will be turning more unsettled. High pressure is in charge at the moment, giving us the quiet conditions. This weather front, though, starting to push down from the north, introducing some cloud to some parts of England and Wales, and that's certainly the case as we go through the evening into the overnight period. A fair bit of cloud pushing its way south-westwards across England and Wales, bringing some patchy rain in places. So the clearest skies generally reserved for the north and northwest of the UK. Plenty of clear spells up across the north and west of Scotland, but as a result of the clear skies here, temperatures at their lowest. Could get down to -5 Celsius in 1 or 2 spots here by Monday morning. When it's towards the south and east of the UK with a cloud around, temperatures generally holding up just above freezing, so the frost here much more patchy. So we start Monday with plenty of sunshine towards the north and west of Scotland, further south and east across the country, a bit more cloud around, the odd spot of rain in places, and fairly cloudy too for parts of Northern Ireland, and variable cloud as we head south into England and Wales, thickest towards the south and southwest of the UK. Here we can see 1 or 2 showers to start the day on Monday, but as I say, the frost will tend to be quite patchy here. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday, the sunshine towards the northwest will tend to fade. The cloud increases from the south and southeast. Elsewhere, though, a fair bit of cloud around, particularly towards the south and west of the UK. 1 or 2 showers down towards the southwest. And the sky starting to clear across the east and southeast of England as dry air starts to move in from the near continent. Plenty of sunshine here into the afternoon, but temperatures still struggling, no higher than 7 to 10 Celsius. 10 down towards the southeast is 50 in Fahrenheit.